Let's take a look at why bandwidth is going to be essential for meeting the challenges of Industry 4.0. Maybe 10 or 15 years ago, we were quite happy with dial-up connection to the internet. But as technology developed, we saw the introduction of broadband, and as this arrived, it brought with it much more bandwidth. And in turn, this allowed the provision of many different services which had just not been possible before. Consider that we're now watching TV and movies over the internet without a second thought. If we go back to the days of dial-up and told people then that we would be able to do these kind of things using the internet, it would have seemed crazy. The technology just wasn't up to it. And it's clear that we can apply similar kind of thinking to manufacturing processes. Right now, we're looking at networks that typically operate using 100 megabit Ethernet. But now Industry 4.0 has come along, we can see that perhaps in the future we're going to need to be able to offer services that maybe haven't even been dreamt of yet. It's clear we're going to need more bandwidth as we go forwards. Let's illustrate this by using a few actual examples. In most automotive assembly plants today, they don't just manufacture one model on each production line. Today, in most automotive assembly plants, it's very common to see different models being assembled on the same line. And each model also has many different features, options, and so on, depending on what the customer ordered. So we're now seeing a case where the amount of data associated with each model is rising very quickly. So to do this, you're going to need networks which have the necessary bandwidth to allow all this data to be handled in real time and make sure that each car is assembled in the correct way. The same thing applies to the food and beverage industry. We're now seeing the advent of processes which perhaps have been borrowed from the pharmaceutical industry being used in food and beverage manufacturing. And so as a result of this, we're seeing a huge amount of data increasing in the manufacturing processes and the need to keep track of all this data. The same thing with consumer electronics. We're seeing more and more complex devices being developed and manufactured. And along with that comes a much higher demand to handle the data that goes along with those manufacturing processes. But finally, maybe the most telling example is in the aircraft industry right now. We're routinely seeing aircraft engines which are generating literally terabytes of data. And this data is being monitored and analysed in real time. So how are we going to do all this? Well, currently we've been used to networks which operate typically at 100 megabits on Ethernet. We're going to need a step change in bandwidth. Until recently, we've been happy to use 100 megabit Ethernet in our automation networks and manufacturing processes. But based on the examples we've just seen, it's clear to see that this kind of bandwidth is not going to be adequate to meet the challenges of Industry 4.0 as we go forwards. So we would suggest that what's required next is a step change in bandwidth. And one way to achieve this is to move from 100 megabit to gigabit Ethernet, which we feel will be able to meet the challenges of manufacturing today and in the future as Industry 4.0 becomes more widespread and develops. We hope this video helped you understand a little more about how gigabit Ethernet supports the demands of Industry 4.0. For more information, please visit our website.